Good afternoon, everybody. It is me, Dan, and I want to welcome you to it's our second official NuPath Live episode. I know that people can tell how many people have logged on. I don't know if I know where to look for that. So I hope it's more. I hope we've attracted a few more than we did at our first one 2 weeks ago when we had about 35 people. You've heard me remark in the past that at the beginning of this pandemic, back in March, we had well over 100 week after week, and then things sort of we got into a routine, a rhythm, and I'll say it, I maybe we were lulled into a false sense of comfort um, because this is something that is this pandemic, this virus is still out there. Not only that, I sent out a video trying to encourage and as many of you to tune in today because we are being faced now with having to make some very difficult decisions about our financial situation, and I wanted to get as many of you to tune in to hear me tell you about what's going on, because this is the best way that I know to do that. So hopefully we have a few more people that have signed on today. But before we do that, as I try to do, we're going to take a look at the data, the statistics. I'm sure most of you have heard the increase. Uh, some are calling it a second surge, some are calling it a third surge, but in Massachusetts, we're now up to 9,888 people dead. And I just, this new system doesn't allow me to see um, the details. So I know that's 1.5 something thousand. I can't read it. Thank you, Greg. Total cases. I should have that to note to self. I'll have that another way next time. Um, but we're really looking at the deaths because that's what concerns us the most. If people get it and then they get better, I mean that's great as long as obviously we don't know what kind of long-term impact it is. And it's the fact that it's just so contagious. In the United States, we're now up to 230,000 people dead, and I don't even know how to put that into a context. Thank you, Greg. Isn't it nice to hear Greg's voice in the background? But oh, you can, all right. This is you know what? I'm just gonna stop for 1 second before we go on to the next. I'm doing this from my home because and just to tell you kind of the afternoon it's been. I was in my office and we got a call saying there's a 147 that from Eversource that we were going to be without electricity within 20 minutes for 2 hours, which means that we couldn't have I couldn't have stayed in my office and done this new path live. That's the beauty of being live is you just never know what you're going to get. So I had to quickly rush home, and that's why I'm here doing it here, and that's why I'm a little. That's why my face looks like a like something red, and I'm a little distracted right now. Globally, 1.17 million people dead, um, an increase of uh, again, almost 79,000. 79 million. What is it? 79 million. Oh, it increased to 78, 79,000. Yes, total number of global cases is what I couldn't see. Um, so that was pretty unsuccessful and a botched job at me sharing the data with you. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people, and more importantly than that, it's so contagious. And we've been dealing. You guys know what's been going on. We've been getting your tests. We've been doing the surveillance testing. You've had some of you have had the swabs up your nose. You've had to spit ridiculous amounts of spit into a cup. None of this is fun. It's so off-putting and uncomfortable, and it's not what any of us signed up for, and it's not what we're used to, and it sucks. It sucks. So it's bad, and we're worried now, and the governor's worried, and we're worried regionally and across the state because we're seeing the cases within our industry increase. The I just threw this graph in to show. how we're now approaching levels that are higher per day. These are per day averages that is as high as anything that we've faced so far. And whether you want to argue that people aren't, not as many people are dying. I mean, Massachusetts has the hospital capacity so far. If you log on to the website, you look at the dashboards, you'll see that we still have 4 of the 6 key indicators are green, the other 2 yellow. So, I know a lot of people are wondering whether or not there's going to be another shutdown. Of course, we're thinking about that because it's what we had to do before. And it's just, I think it's the uncertainty of everything. This next graph, I thought it was interesting because as much as it feels like we're choking on the virus here in Massachusetts, this just shows the total different states and how much they take up of the total percentage in the United States. So if you look all the way down, one row up for the bottom, it says Arizona, Arkansas, then Massachusetts is the third one. Massachusetts is only 1.42% of the nation's total. So from a national perspective, we account for a very small amount compared to Texas, Illinois, California, Wisconsin, Florida. Hey, are those the swing states? No, are the states that we're going to be worried about in the election? Wear your masks. I don't have to say it anymore. You guys know. We can't become complacent. We're going to bring Dan on, Landon on in a couple of minutes, and so far, knock wood, we have not had anybody test positive in any of our homes. We remember those dark days back in March and April. We don't want to go back there, and certainly staff that have had it, we don't want to see that. But meanwhile, agencies all around us in this area, west and south in the state, they have had it, and we've got to be on our guard. I threw this in here. Hopefully, NuPath staff are all registered and have their vote plan if they haven't done so already. Mine was mailed out 3 weeks ago, so I know my vote's in. This is so important, and I want to believe that we have the kind of employees at NuPath that are going to exercise their civic responsibility and have their vote counted. It's important. It's next Tuesday. It's right around the corner, and then we'll see what happens. Part of what's I think freaking everybody out is the uncertainty. There's so many things we don't know, and anybody that's been connected with NuPath for a while, you know that we talk a lot about how we're not afraid. You've heard me say it. We're an organization. We're not afraid. We're not afraid to try new things. We're not afraid of the unknown and the uncertainty, and so it's kind of stopped me a few times over the past 6-9 months, and I in the still quiet of the night, I'll say, I am a little afraid, and is that bad? And how can I think about this, because I'm not supposed to be afraid. And I saw this, came across this quote recently, attributed to Oprah Winfrey. It says, "Real courage is being afraid, but doing it anyway." And I guess you could say that we don't really have a choice in some matters. We have to move forward. Nothing has prepared any of us for what we've been facing with this pandemic in our homes and with our jobs, and how so much in our world has collided with just the surreal and doing things every day that we never maybe even thought we would, or we'd agree to, or that we'd be comfortable doing. And so I just want to pause here and take a moment to thank everybody again for the courage that they've demonstrated in facing the fear and moving our organization along. But we've reached a crossroads, and so it's time to dig deep and find that courage again. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what our financial situation is right now. Our budget for this year in FY20 came in at $23,695,246, more or less. That felt pretty solid. And if anybody remembers, we started off the year with this big hurrah and talking about this fourth industrial revolution and how technology was going to transform our lives. I mean, it's still that's all true. Of course, we didn't factor in the pandemic. Now we are looking at our budget for FY21 coming in probably about $21.7 million, which is a decrease of, well, we've had to figure out how we're going to cut out 1.9 million in cuts and expenses. Guys, that is a ton of money. 1.9 million. Like, where do you even start to do that? And I think what so many of us have been doing, what I've been doing, I'll just talk about me specifically as a CEO. I've been trying very hard to not freak out and to be patient and to be hopeful. And we had the second stimulus package that came from the federal government back in whenever it was, April or whatever. We got the PPP loan. We got a Medicaid grant, relief grant. We've availed ourselves of every single thing that has been put out there. But as of January 1st, much of that aid is gone, and I think that everybody was thinking that by now there would have been the third stimulus package that would have come from the Senate. That's what people have been waiting for. This third stimulus would include, it's widely believed, that it would include money for states, for COVID relief, for all sorts of things. And of course, that makes a big difference in the state budget. And then depending on the state budget, makes a big difference in the budget for DDS. Probably more detail than all of you want or what you logged on for. But this is part of the complexity of the picture that we've been dealing with and waiting, hoping the stimulus package would come. And now that we're, just a week out from the election, less than a week, it seems very unlikely that will happen. So we have to wait some more, but we cannot afford to wait anymore before we make some serious cuts. Otherwise, we will not be a business in a year's time. And that is not an exaggeration. We've got to figure out a way to bring our expenses in line with our revenue. I don't, in the history of this organization, I don't know that there's ever been a task this, and I don't want to sound like being dramatic and hyperbole, but I mean 1.9 million. It's been quite a task to figure out how we're going to do that. So, yeah, this is not the most upbeat of NuPath lives. I realize. We're going to go to the next slide, and I want to share with you some of the things. These are just very broad, sort of highlights of how we're tackling this. The first cut. And let me say this. I'm trying to think who it was that asked me. I can't remember. It might have been Ken. It was a Cinebaldi. I think it was Ken that said one day to me, he says, what was harder, building and growing NuPath over the past, 15, 16, 18 years, or carried it down? I think he knew the answer to that because he probably wouldn't have asked it if he hadn't thought that it would be very tough. And it's been a heartbreak to me to think about some of the things that we're going to have to do after. And I'm not alone in this because I will bring Dan Lannon on in a minute. But I mean Dan and I remember moving the Dayhab in the back of a truck. I don't even know what truck it was. We don't have it anymore. Like, physically moving potted palms into Sylvan Road. We opened the Martin Center, and some of the things that we're faced with doing right now. It makes me so sad because we spent the past and there's so many of you that have just given yourselves your heart and soul and your blood and sweat and tears into creating some of these programs that right now we don't need. And we can't we don't have attendance for. So the first thing is lease space. We are going to be letting go of our space in Bedford It's a space that has been used for new staff orientations and many other things. It's been the hub for vocational services staff. It's residential directors have a hub there. Ted Horn, his office is there. I mean, it's provided a really a great sort of outpost, in our service uh, provision, and that's just something that we. I mean, when are we going to be doing in-person new staff orientations? Like, it's going to be a while before we do that, and there's no sense in keeping space just for that purpose. The other one that is it's not 100% yet, but it looks like we're going to go that direction is letting go of the Martin Center in West Cummings Park. Um, we have reason to believe that there is probably between 85 and 90 people that formerly attended our day programs that are not going to be coming back anytime soon. These are people that live in residential agencies, and those agencies have decided to keep them home. The department is letting this happen, and they're funding them to stay home because of the fear that they're going to get sick. And we're we're paying something like $250,000 a year for that space, and it's been empty since March, and it's it's not. We don't have any reason to believe that we'll be able to get people back there. It's certainly not at a level that will uh, allow us to continue to lease the space. So those are two key areas. There's a number of other things with our fleet of vehicles and so on, but the big ones are the spaces and what we're doing with those. At the time, for the time being, we're keeping Westford, but I mean everything's on the table because we've got to figure out a way to cut expenses while letting us continue to do business because we are providing a very serious service in our area, and we need to remain able to do that. So the big cut's going to come in personnel. When we started this horrible, merry-go-round, back in March, we furloughed 48 people, most of them drivers and monitors. Um, and we're preparing to move into the next round. In fact, there are people that have been conversations that have begun today and will continue as the week goes on. These will be people that will be laid off or furloughed. Um, if you're laid off, it means that we don't see any likelihood that you'll be coming back anytime. Probably your position will be. We just don't see us needing it any longer. And guys, this has been so hard. I want to make sure you know that the furthest thing from Cavalier or, I mean, right now I'm reading it off a list to you, but this has been the result of weeks of discussions and planning and talking and thinking and hoping and praying and being awake at night and the most unpleasant period of my experience as CEO for this organization. But so there'll be some layoffs, furloughs, or people that we really hope that within 6 months we'll be able to bring people back on some amount of work or hours. Another thing that we're going to be doing quite a bit of is we're going to be reducing um, a large number of salaries that are for the non-bargaining unit employees. So that includes me and the other vice presidents that are going to be um, that are taking a 20% cut. I don't think I was supposed to say that, but I want you to know that we are sharing this pain. If we're going to get through this together, if we are going to, and I believe we will, we're going to do it because we care deeply about this organization, and I want to see it survive and be on the other side of this when this virus is no longer the kind of lethal threat that it is now, and we're going to be monitoring our financial performance and our you know, quarterly, if the second that we can return people to where their salaries were before, then we're going to do that. I promise you. I promise you we're going to do that. But we felt that and then the final one on that was reduced hours, that if there were enough people that were hoping or would be willing to take a pay cut than to be unemployed and to be looking for another job in this climate and this uncertainty that abounds out there. And then there'll be a number of other occupancy expenses that we're looking to decrease, from consultants to landscaping to, so many of the things that were the special enhancements that we were so very proud of in the past, and we will be again. But this is and the other thing, I think I already said it here, but it's the uncertainty that's just so debilitating. It can be, because we don't know what's going to be happening, and yet, so we could, depending on, the results of the election, what happens after that, everybody's believing that there'll be a third federal stimulus package that will come to the states. Is that going to be before the end of the year? Is it going to be in January? Is it going to, we just don't know. We hope that we will see some benefits from that when this all sorts itself out. But unfortunately, for the time being, we are sadly in need of some assistance to maintain our programs, and without people coming, we simply cannot afford to keep them open. So that is where we are, and I know that some people were a little bit. I just heard some feedback that people after my video yesterday were concerned about what I would be sharing, and maybe those people have reason to be. Maybe they've already gotten a conversation from their supervisor telling them that they've been laid off, or that they're going to be working a reduced, schedule, or that their salaries are going to be reduced. This is not the best time for us, but it's also not the best time for millions and millions of Americans that are suffering. And I've just got to continue to keep coming back to, if we can keep people healthy and well and not dead, that we all get through this, then that is going to be my key objective here. And I'm hoping that we can all just share a little bit of this, the pain, and together we'll get ourselves to the other side until things can start to improve, and our funding can return to a more normal level. So, on that bright note, I'm going to thank you all for watching. We're going to go up to Dan, who's in Westford. I thought check in with him and get his perspective on a few things.
And you're live.
How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing well, thank you, Dan. Thank you. Just observing everything that you're saying here, and all the the gravity of the situation. Certainly 20% is something I know that we struggled over for a while, and I know that even the people that it will be furloughed or laid off, those weren't easy decisions to come by, and so I just echo your thoughts and your words that you said today about how difficult it was. So,
Dan, you've worked for the organization about as long as anyone. I think maybe only Judy, Ted, and Sharon, maybe, or I don't even know if they're longer than you or not. But I think you were listening earlier. Maybe you were when I talked about how, remember, we started how we moved the Martin Center, and I remember being there, like, unloading. I've been through. I remember, working on progress to day of service plans up in Westford at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
getting ready for a day of service audit. I mean, you and I've been through the grind. We've been to hell and back, but this is unlike anything that we've really encountered before, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly all those situations that we've been through before, and certainly, you mentioned Ted and Sharon and Matt Johnson and then Judy and a number of people that have worked here, James, the same amount of time as me. During all those times, that's what people did was just, come together and try to make things work so that we came out, on the other side of whatever the challenge was. And you mentioned the Mountain Center move. I certainly go back to when we moved out Everberg Road, when we couldn't afford to have movers move all the machinery when we did piecework at the time. And so certainly none of those have ever impacted us like this. And we have been through times before, prior to your being CEO, where there were salary freezes and so certainly, this is the biggest sort of, I guess, obstacle we've had to pass on to staff. And certainly, we're all trying to just balance that. And, people have lives and families. And so we're certainly sympathetic of that. And I think the way you said, you'll review that as soon as possible. And we'll continuously update people and check on this. I think we're really looking at a very difficult time where politically, a new stimulus package wasn't passed. And, we've done everything that we could over the last several months with the writing on the wall of some other providers. I guess on an ADDP call today, they said there were 9 other programs right now that have just decided to close. Some shops are consolidate or close completely. And so I don't think we're alone in this. It doesn't make it any easier, but I do think that the way we're going about it gives us the best chance to come out of it the quickest. And I think that's what we have to be able to do is be able to get people back to whole, get the individuals' lives back to whole, get staff's lives back to whole, and just get back to business. I think that's what sort of everyone needs these days. So.
You said something last week that where I thought was I thought it was a profound sort of observation, and it really influenced my decision to some of the decisions we made, and namely deciding to get rid of the Martin Center. That sounds so vulgar. Get rid of, let it go, I guess you'd say, or close it. Because you were talking about there's a number of 85 people or so that are in residential agencies that are not likely to be coming back anytime soon. But this is the part you said. You said, we know everything around us is changing, right? Like, it's changing us culturally and socially and in so many ways, the rhythms of how we live our lives. But you said, when the time comes when people are ready to look for a program again, what is it that they're going to be wanting? Is it really going to be a medical day hab that we're going to be, that there's going to be a call for, or is it going to be a different kind of program altogether? And I think that kind of illuminated the rationale or the wisdom of saying, you know what, we'll find more space. When the time comes when people are wanting to come back to something, we'll have a fresh slate and say, okay, what is it people want? What do they need? What in this new world order? What is it? Is it a combination? Some virtual, some in person? I mean, is DMA going to change its regulations to allow us to not have to have facility based, for people? And is there even going to be a desire to get people into the community? I mean, so many of the things we did well before with our community and the no walls are things that really can't even happen very easily in the pandemic. What are people going to be asking for at the end of this thing? And I thought that was a good way of sort of informing, because in one way it's just realistic, but it's also hopeful, because we don't know what it's going to be that people want, but we'll be there and ready to go and ready to reimagine what it is that people are looking for. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I do, and I guess I guess what 15 years we worked together, I came up with something profound. So I guess it takes a pandemic to have that happen.
Well, don't let it go to your head.
I guess I was just more, the writing is on the wall. Mass Health in many of, two our funding sources have said, programs have to be this particular way, or we have to run these particular programs, and this is how you have to run it. You have to have a facility. The day has to start in a facility. And I think all those things we were able to quickly change and respond to, during the pandemic, to be able to get, some supports out to families and lives. And so I can't imagine that that families and the funding sources are going to want to go back to a day where we're not able to do any of that once we've been able to support the families like that. So I do think that's, an important thing that we have to be factoring into all the decisions. And I know, I think that's what in my mind makes me think that, we'll be able to bounce back maybe more swiftly than some other agencies that are approaching things a little bit different. And so that's certainly what I'm hopeful. I mean, I guess I should say so that we're completely transparent. There is a slim chance that the Martin Center could hang on a little while longer. We still are in discussions with Cummings on a few different ideas, and so I guess we'll update people on that. But as you mentioned, that's a 12,000 square foot building with a lot of medical supplies that are very expensive equipment, and there's a lot of things right there. So I don't think we're in a place to move out today, but we are prepared in our heads if we have to move out.
I was telling, not to do a walk down memory lane, but I remember when we got our first high-low changing table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very exciting.
We did it with end of year money, and because there's like $6,000 or something there, or maybe even more, and it was so, in those days, it was so out of reach for anything that we could afford. And I remember being like, you would have thought we had bought a new car or something. The way we were so excited. And how many of those do we have over the Martin Center now? Is it?
The Martin Center alone has 7 now. So
7 of those tables. Mm. So that's just one example of something that very expensive. They weigh 1 million tons, and where are you going to put it? And if we ever go, when we do reopen, I'm glad you mentioned that. We are in conversations with Cummings to see if there's anything that they can do for us. But unfortunately, part of the problem with all this is that we're unable to commit to something long term. Like we initially signed a 5-year lease, I think, with Cummings, wasn't it? And then Westford was a 10-year lease.
Yeah.
It's a long time, and I don't think anybody right now wants to be signing anything that's going to be adding years of extension on to existing leases. And we're lucky that we had that sort of what did we call act of God clause, or is it if something had happened to disrupt our primary source of funding, which is DDS, which I don't think Cummings or anybody ever thought it was really going to happen, because we're a 50-year-old agency that has never once had that kind of a problem or issue. So I think people just always thought, oh yeah, they say it, but it'll never happen. Well, when you're coming up short by nearly $2 million in revenues that you used to get, that's a huge deal. Yeah. And so, but your point being that could change, that could evolve in a different direction. All of this could change. By the time we are, within a month's time, by tomorrow, we could get some crazy announcement that the third federal stimulus package has come to the states, and by next Tuesday we could find out that we're getting the funding's going to be changing or improving, or the LRTS rates are going to be retroactive to July. So many things that we we're counting on that haven't happened could still happen, but we couldn't wait any longer to make some serious revisions to our budget if we were going to have a hope of getting through it.
Yeah, and I know again, I mentioned the 9 programs that have closed their doors or maybe consolidated programs where we are serving some of the Martin Center people over at New Boston Street. I know other programs have done that, and the appeal was made to Mass Health to allow programs to increase their capacity. of some programs so that we could do that. We could consolidate one program to another just for staffing purposes and for cost wise and just overall attendance. And so I know that, Mass Health and DDS has shown a willingness to work with us during this time frame, but all of those things are not enough. I think an additional federal stimulus package, like you said, everyone knows is needed and will be coming. It's just the timing of when it will be coming. And I think that some of the decisions we have to make on a daily basis, because the residential network and its staff and Doreen and Michelle and the nurses, all of them have been doing a tremendous job keeping the residents and the program safe and going. And we need to, we've a lot of day service staff have worked, I have worked there and are working there. And I think we just need to even support them more during this time, because it could be, we could see greater spikes in the winter, or we could see greater needs in those components. And we need to be prepared for that. And so,
I mean, the residential teams is really, they continue to do, the heroic job of continuing to, move along, even as, many of their colleagues are working remotely and everything else has changed. It's just added more pressure to the residential programs. I want staff to know that we really are exploring every single creative thing that we could think about doing. One of the ways that we've, I think it was actually kind of a creative idea, is to let staff that are going to be getting a decrease, and these are mainly salaried employees, but having a decrease to their salaries, letting them tap into their vacation time to help offset. And that serves a dual purpose, because we have so much vacation time that's, balances that are very high, and that's a negative for NuPath, because it shows up as a liability against, our bottom line. And so it would help NuPath if people use some of their vacation time, and if we can provide this as a way to help people not feel as much of a crush of having a decrease, like 20% cut. So we're doing some things like that. We're also we're doubling down on navigating life, because I do believe that that's going to make NuPath money. And if we can get that, even in a time like this, I think never more has navigating life shown itself to be more fundamentally important to a kind of a future, a new way of doing business. And we just need to get the attention of the right people, the decision makers in DDS or beyond. And so we are continuing to work on that. I mean, even as we're doing these other things that are kind of, I'll say, heartbreaking again, because it really, it's very difficult to do these sorts of things if you're a human servicey type of person, which we all are. If we were in, big Fortune 500 or something, and it's our business to, take over businesses and lay hundreds of thousands of people off, it might be a different story. But we are working hard, and I know you and your teams and Ted and everybody have just been so great in stepping up and sort of helping us reimagine like how we do our business. And I'm really I'm trusting, and I believe that even though we are facing this particular challenge, this temporary setback, I'm really hopeful that we'll have the majority of people's support, 100% in doing what needs to be done to get us through this, even if it means their salaries are cut or their hours are reduced, or any other thing that we've had to implement to help save some money. So I guess I'd say if people had comments or feedback or thoughts that they would make sure they voice those and articulate them. And if there's something that we haven't thought about or haven't seen, or if you have an idea of a way that you think we can save some money, I hope you'll step up and speak out, because we can't leave any potential savings go on without investigating it or looking at it, what the feasibility is. Do you have any final remarks, Dan? Like, what do are you having conversations with the people that are going to be most affected by this? Have you had some of them today? Are you going to be finishing some of them up tomorrow, or?
Yeah, no, I think those will happen mostly for tomorrow. I think we wanted, I think getting today's message out to staff was important, and I know that some of the other vice presidents and directors have talked with the the staff that are going to be infected, and so I'm just need to have one more communication with HR, and then I will be doing that. So some may be today, some may be tomorrow. I just did want to mention, in to the people responsible for getting tested. We're continuing in the surveillance testing that will continue next week, and so Tuesday, I think there's testing here in Westford. Karen will email that notification out again, and although our region and our county is in the low, has a low transmission rate right now, we still participate in the surveillance testing, which is 100% of staff once a month. So that will be happening next week, and then also our residential homes are in the process of having Department of Public Health come out and sort of just do a review of what practices are, so that if there are any pointers or suggestions that they've seen at other programs, they will be letting us know that and giving us those recommendations. And I think that's an important thing. We heard on a call yesterday that there hasn't been one program that they've been out to that they haven't had any recommendations at all. And so I don't think the recommendations we should have a look at as violations. They're just recommendations or the suggestions of what they've seen work at other programs and been helpful in containing the virus. So that's just a few things that are coming up over the next couple of weeks, because we still need to, as I said, get the residential support, residential teams and programs the support that they need, so that we can continue to pull ourselves out of this.
Right. All right. Well, we were trying to commit to keeping these a little shorter than, letting them stretch into 45 minutes or an hour, but this has gone to 45 minutes. I am sure you'll reiterate with me that we're just so grateful for the people that are, that are out there doing the work every day. We couldn't continue any of it if it weren't for the consistency and the dedication of the team that's out there. And I, that you matter. We care deeply about you, and which has made so much of this so difficult. But we will get through this. Anything final to say, Dan, before we let you go?
No, it's just thank you everyone, and thank you everyone for their support, and we'll just continue to fight through this and do what we know how to do, which is support the individuals in the programs. And so that's all we can do right now.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for us for this issue of or episode of NuPath Live. Guys, thank you for your patience. I have a feeling, I watch them always afterwards, and I'm very critical of what I see, from my own, and I feel like I was a little scattered today and a little clumsy maybe getting started. We're still learning this new technology, this new program. So I thank you for your patience and for bearing with us and for being here today. We got this, guys. Wear your mask. I don't have to say it again. I shouldn't have to say it again. We can beat this thing. We just have to remain vigilant. All right. That does it for me. We'll see you next week on Thursday for our next NuPath Live. All right. Bye, everyone.